Welcome back to another episode of Making Sense with me, John Napolitano. We're here to break down the big questions high net worth families face. You know, the ones your investment guy never talks about. No fluff, no finance 101, just straight talk to help you make smarter decisions and keep your wealth working as hard as you do. Let's get to it. Hi, I'm John Napolitano, your host of Making Sense here today, and we're going to talk today about normal topic for us, right? Fully integrated. And what that means is making sure that all the pieces of your financial life kind of come together and are well thought out and leaving kind of nothing in the gaps. Today, everyone's favorite topic, fully integrated and real estate. And what I mean by that is, when you buy real estate, it's not just get a mortgage, write a check, go to the closing, game over. No, there's a lot of other stuff that should happen that typically doesn't happen. And frankly, I blame the professionals you work with for being asleep at the switch for that. Today, my guest is Mr. Alex Weiss, president of Napier Financial. And he and I have done a lot of time in the trenches talking about real estate with clients over the years. So, Alex, how you doing today?
I am fantastic, John. Thanks for having me, man. Excited for today.
Sounds good. Well, let's get right on it. When people think fully integrated finance, real estate, it's like we're talking a foreign language to them. So let's dive right in, okay? Everyone buys a house. And let's talk about one of your clients comes to you. Let's do this from two perspectives and says, hey, we're going to buy a new house. What are the first questions you're going to ask them or the first bits of advice you're going to give them?
Yeah, it's really what kind of property is it? This is a forever home? Is this short-term stint until you get to a quote forever home? And by the way, there is no forever home. They're always moving properties in one way, shape, or form. It goes down to proper ownership is the first question, is making sure that the ease of a closing attorney and a real estate professional is just put it in your name or put it in your joint name or put it in your spouse's name. And what you really want to make sure you do is put it in some version of a trust, whatever trust is most applicable to you. Most of our clients, that's their core revocable trust that can cover all the what ifs in someone's life. And when it comes to financing some of these properties, more often than not, a revocable trust is not going to cause any issues with a mortgage lender. There, from time to time, sure, it does. But all it is proper disclosure, it's proper diligence, an extra form or two to sign that can just save you from all the what if scenarios that happen in life. So ownership is one. And we're really hot on
right there for a minute. So on ownership, there's two people, at least in my opinion, that kind of help drop the ball there. The first one is the closing attorney. They usually don't even ask, right? They just go right to joint tenants with rights of survivorship.
Sometimes even worse, just individual name. Who's the breadwinner? Put that in their name. Yeah, they'll be fine. Oh man, that one kills me because it's easier. Less signature, faster closing.
The second asleep at the switch is the realtor. Now, realtors just want to close the deal. I get it. But don't you think it would be smart for a realtor to ask, hey, how would you like to own this property? Have you updated your estate plan or do you have a client?
Yeah, you nailed it. We fall asleep at the switch because they're very transactional based and they just want to get on the next one and spend as least time as possible so they can focus on the next deal.
And maybe the third asleep at the switch is, to the extent there's a mortgage involved, the lender. So why wouldn't the lender ask that question?
You bring up a great question. I think it's more paperwork. I think it's just more time and they want to get onto the next one again. It's challenging for sure. Okay.
The next issue with buying a personal residence, let me phrase it this way. Your client comes to you and says, hey, my daughter wants to buy a house, the first house, and I want to help. How can I help them?
Yeah, well, you can help in a handful of ways, and one is with danger. One is co-signing a loan. We typically do not recommend co-signing a loan. Part of the reason is if that person it defaults on the loan, guess what? You just defaulted on the loan, and you can tie your own credit up in different ways that you probably don't want. Let alone if they're single, sure, but if they're married, even more complicated. So you really want to stay away from co-signing loans of any kind, let alone a large mortgage. You can gift down payments. That is, you have to understand what's your ability to gift, making sure you file the proper gift tax returns, making sure you understand gifting limits, Or if you don't actually want to gift it, you could also loan it to them and then forgive that loan over time. So it just depends on the size of the gift that you want to give. But more often than not, Johnny, we've had these questions 1,000 times.
Right.
The people we work with, they're so giving, they want to help, but you got to do it in the right way. So if you want to gift a handful or a lot of cash, sure, absolutely do it. You just have to make sure you file the right documentation behind it. Or, John, one we get often too, hey, my son is probably going to get married to this woman. She's wonderful. They're not married yet. They want to buy the house together before they get married because it's financially feasible. And I'm just going to gift them the money. Well, that's wonderful. But what if they break up? Well, half of it is going to the person that just broke up with them because it was a joint gift to two people. And if someone gets someone angry enough, they're definitely not going to give that half of money back.
So in that case,
when this
raised
happens,
a lot of issues. You raised a lot of issues. Issue one is make it a real, put it in writing. Issue two, make sure that the house is titled other than jointly. Because, for example, if you gift it to your daughter and her boyfriend, and your daughter passes away, boyfriend now owns the house and has no obligation to pay you back.
correct. And you may want that, but more often than not, most people don't.
Yeah, I would say if that's the case, I want to marry their daughter.
Right on. So you bring up, and you have to file that, and you have to have the breakup agreement before you actually enter the purchase agreement. And the craziest part is, John, speaking from experience, before I was married, something similar happened on a much lower scale. But guess what? If done right, everybody is comfortable through every step of the process, and there's no ever questions asked or needed. It's just a wonderful thing to do.
So let me hear this. When you volunteered to your in-laws, hey, dude, we really appreciate the help, but let me show you how to do this right. We're going to do a real promissory note because if I turn out to be a deadbeat or God forbid your daughter passes, blah, 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 blah. What was their reaction? Was it like, way too complicated? Or were they profoundly grateful that you were thinking of them?
Well, it was a foreign concept to a lot of people at the time. And I think it's because it's a challenging conversation that most people just want to avoid. And especially if the dollar amounts get larger, these conversations carry more gravity. But I think at the end, they were appreciative of this actually happening because they knew that they were protected because they wanted to help their daughter. Of course, right? They wanted to help their daughter. And that is such a profound relationship building opportunity for a outlaw, if you will, eventually marrying into the family that says, hey, I'm here because I'm here for not only my spouse, but I'm here for the rest of that extended family. And I'm going to do the right thing at every step rather than just kind of faking it all the way through. And it's an awkward conversation to start. But once you actually have it, I think everybody is a little bit more at ease, and it really just deepens longevity of relationships because there's nothing to hide at that point. You know exactly how this is going to roll, no matter what life kind of throws at you. The good news is nothing bad happened. Everyone's health was fantastic. The relationship is still thriving. Hi, Ashley. And the ability to continue those conversations as their financial life continues is they know that the right stuff will be done at all moments in time. Gifting to grandkids, gifting to their children, where they have charitable inclinations and making just, John, the conversations are endless, but they know that financial flexibility is there and that freedom is there because of what appeared to be very small step has unbelievable, profound benefits for the future.
So let me pivot now, still on a personal residence theme, but let's talk about a vacation house. I'm not talking about a legacy property where someone comes to you and says, we're going to buy this killer waterfront house right next to the Beachcomber in Wellfleet, and we want to keep it forever for the generations to come. Let's just talk about the regular old vacation house that they're not really sure what the hell they're going to do with it long term, but they want it. So similar issues, right, as to buying a primary residence with tenancy, how should you own it, finance it or not finance it, etc. But I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in, and that is, oh, by the way, we intend to rent this for a few weeks or a month per year to help cost. Now, what do?
It's challenging because most people, what their gut tells them to do to save on complexity is just rent it to the people that you know and hold your nose and hope something doesn't happen. That is like red flag material, especially on a vacation house. Because what are you doing on vacation, John? It's every day is Saturday. You're probably partying and drinking and having fun and having guests over, and things just happen at vacation properties. You really have to lean on your professionals to set up the proper entity. And the structure in this sense, if you're renting it out, is in my opinion, an LLC all day long and twice on Sunday. It's belt and suspenders because of someone's drinking, slips and falls, hurts himself. Who are they going to sue? Everybody. And if it's in an LLC structure, you're going to be well protected against anything spilling over to your personal balance sheet. Now, you still have home insurance, right? You have home and umbrella insurance for that property. So assuming it's not absolutely devastating, your insurance should cover it. But what if they have a party and there's 5 people that, I don't know, man. You never know. A deck collapses. Who the heck knows?
You brought up a trick question there. What if you have insurance?
No.
They probably have to have insurance unless there's no mortgage. But did they tell the insurance company that they plan to rent it?
Totally. Yep. Another footfall.
And if they didn't, what's the problem there?
If they didn't, they're just going to deny a claim because of that. You didn't tell them there wasn't a rental, or you changed ownership to an LLC. You forgot, I put that in air quotes, to change it to an LLC because now it becomes a small business property and the insurance rates in theory go up, and you're like, I want to save a few $100 here. And saving a few $100 is detrimental when actually something happens, because the people that really want to have the right insurance want to make sure the premium is correct. You're not shopping to save $10 here, John. You're making sure that if/when something happens, you have the right insurance at the right time. Just a key component to making sure you actually, when you make that ownership change, you go through all aspects of the ownership change, including updating your insurance to let them know you're renting it and it's owned by a new entity. 2 very super important things that you got to make sure that you know.
And let me emphasize that if you have what the insurance companies call an attractive nuisance on the property, that could be a swimming pool, beachfront, jet ski, boat, snowmobile, anything that moves that can hurt people, you really have to make sure you're well protected there. Especially, whether you allow your tenants to use it or not. You can tell them, oh, you can't use the jet skis. But they go out and use the jet skis and they crash into a boat somewhere. It still could bounce back on you.
Totally.
Yep. All right. Well, okay. Enough scaring people over their vacation homes. And by the way, our mission here isn't to scare the crap out of you. Our mission here is to let you know that there's people, professionals in your lives that should address these issues for you before the proverbial poop hits the fan. And, you don't need to wait until after an incident. So fully integrated planning means someone like Alex would address these issues for you beforehand and make sure that you're covered so that when it hits the fan, you're going to be as protected as humanly possible. Now, sticking with real estate, let's move over to another issue, and that is business property. And I'll approach business property from 2 prongs here. Let's call the first prong, well, real estate, a lot of people think it always goes up. So I want to buy the house next door to me or a 6-family building on the other side of town from me and rent that out because I hear it's a great investment. What's the scoop with that?
Oh man, Johnny, where do we start? So first off, most people, especially with the internet nowadays, it's quote a passive investment, right? You just sit back and every 30 days you collect your rent check and wow, I'm making so much money. But what they typically forget about is all the maintenance in those properties. The toilet gets clogged on Thanksgiving Day. Guess who's getting that phone call? You are. And what are you in the middle of? Probably your family meal, but you have to drop everything and make sure that it's corrected or taken care of, let alone heat. We're good old New England winters up here. Heat is a very sensitive subject, and you have to make sure that stuff gets addressed very quickly. And that is not only a time commitment, but it's also financially, it's a financial commitment as well. So most people think that owning real estate is a passive job. It is by far not a passive job, if, in my opinion, done correctly. So that's one part. The second part,
you bought yourself a job along with that property. And if it's a small property, it's probably too small to hire a property manager. So you're stuck. You're in the saddle. You are the employee.
Yeah, because if you do that, if you hire that property manager or someone you outsource everything to, it's going to eat away at all your profits. So this thing is probably going to be cash flow negative if you get even a normal amount of maintenance, let alone if you have a tough few years in a row, you're going to go cash flow negative on this fairly quickly. Again, every property is different. You have to do the diligence on them. but it's definitely a job, and it's definitely not as cash positive as most people think it is short term. Now, ultimately, long term, if you do this correctly, it feels positive, but that's only because you're typically paying off your debt. So the equity that most people feel that they're getting is just to pay down a debt over a long period of time. They're like, "Ooh, I made $1 million." I'm like, well, let's pump the brakes a little bit. You actually, yeah, you paid down some debt. You paid a ton of interest along the way. Yeah, your property might have increased by inflation over 30 years, but there's plenty of other things that did the same exact thing without calling you in the middle of your Thanksgiving dinner to fix a clogged toilet, mind you.
Yeah.
And then people forget to add all that maintenance cost back into their actual real rate of return. So unless you're in the business of putting real estate portfolios together, your real rate of return is likely net less than you believe it is, because most people just wake up and they think 30 years ago, I bought it for X, it's worth Y, and there's no debt. Well, calculation is much more complicated than that.
No
That's
question.
point one.
Yep.
So then point two is, it goes back to ownership. I feel like we harp on ownership, whether it's real estate or any other asset people own. You have to make sure it's in the right ownership. And this goes back to an LLC again. But the ultimate owner of this LLC, you, it could be an irrevocable trust. It can be multiple partners. Like so when you actually dig down inside the LLC, depending on if it's a 1 unit, what'd you say, a 6 unit, a 10 unit, whatever it may be, there may be more than one partner for financial reasons, for family gifting reasons, for you name the reasons that can happen. So you really have to understand the LLC structure to make sure that you're protected against liability. You have to go through the diligence with your insurance carriers, John, like you spoke about earlier, to make sure you get the right insurance and the right boxes are checked and details are checked. And then dig down under that LLC hood to make sure you understand who the ultimate beneficial owners of the LLC are. Is it you, John? Is it me? Is it a combination of partners? Do you want to include next generation? Do you want to include... You have devils in the details there, because you can really leverage gifting opportunities inside LLCs within real estate as well, if properly done.
Let's twist the facts just a little bit.
Please.
And let's say we have someone watching this that says, hey, dude, I'm smarter than that. I'm not going to buy a rental property and have 18 strangers living in it that might sue the pants off me. I'm going to be the tenant. So I'm going to buy a building for my business because I'm sick of paying rent to that landlord. Let's talk about, you own the business. You want to buy the building. Your company is going to be the sole tenant of that building. What are not maybe red flags? This could be a great idea. I mean, we love that idea when our clients do it. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Tell us about the right way to do it.
Yeah, the right way to do it is to make sure it's in a separate entity than your business. And you want to have an arm's length transaction here. So what I mean by that, it's multiple structures, but let's just say the LLC structure for the property is the best way to go. Then you actually want to have a formal lease between the real estate and your business. Now, the question is, how much do you charge? Well, you got to take stuff you have to figure out what's the fair market rent for a business like this in a property in a specific location. Like, are you in a building downtown in a major metropolitan area, or are you 3 miles in the outskirts of nowhere where land is vast and you can get warehouse space for basically nothing? That's one part. So you need to know where the market sits based on your property. The second part is, what kind of services are you going to give yourself? Are we going to talk about Ritz-Carlton high end? Or are we talking about Motel 6? We'll just basically keep the lights on for you. Like, which one are we talking about? If you're in a Ritz-Carlton, by the way, who has really high occupancy rates and room rates, by the way, if you haven't checked, John, they're not inexpensive. You can charge yourself more, but you have to make sure you're giving yourself that service. Versus if you just need to make sure you're starting your business out and you have to make sure that rent is as low as possible, because that's what makes sense for the business to cash flow. You just have to make sure that you can justify charging a slightly lower rent than average based on the services given, or the other way around. We'd like to have Ritz-Carlton service based on the taxation of rental real estate to someone's personal balance sheet, assuming they own 100% of each of those businesses or the majority of each of those businesses, because it's just a little bit more tax favorable. So once there's more mature businesses, we err towards the Ritz-Carlton view of the world. But that's one of the marks that you have to make there. You have to have a fair arm's length transaction with a lease in place, understand the market rent based on the level of service that you're giving, and then goes back to that ownership structure. The LLC, who's actually the owner? Is it you? Is it one of your irrevocable trusts? Is it you with minority partners? And that could be individuals, small partners in the other business, could be kids, family members, for gifting purposes that you can slowly gift shares over time. I mean, John, we could spend another hour just on this, but those are a few of the small parts of that transaction that you really have to think about up front if you want to nail it short and long term.
And let me warn our viewers, we've seen a lot of lawyers where a little knowledge is dangerous. And the lawyer knows enough to set up this real estate in a separate entity, but they forget to talk about the lease. They forget to talk about, you have to respect the entity lines. So if you own, John LLC for the business and John 2 LLC for the real estate, you have to make sure that you're respecting the lines and that John 2 pays its bills out of its checkbook, John 1 pays its bills out of its checkbook, and that there's no blurring, commingling, or, one of these guys going on. Because if there is, the IRS could really put a damper on that transaction, couldn't they?
Totally. And is it a double net lease? Is it a triple net lease? Know the lease that you have and make sure you're paying the right bills according to what the lease actually reads. Details, John. It's all about the details. And it doesn't matter until it does. And it's super important, especially as net worth rises, gifting happens, that you really have to respect the entity so they don't throw all that decades of hard work and tax savings out the window to save potentially millions just because you were a little lazy, didn't want to spend money on the bookkeeper to keep the checking account up to speed and up to date, and the wrong bill was going out of the wrong account just because.
Ooh. And the clients think, well, what's the problem, man? I own this business, I own that. Is this at the end of the year, the accountant fixes it all for me, but not a good way of being, is it?
No, totally not.
Well, I think we probably have reached the end of our rope for today's real estate. We want people to give them enough information to know that you don't have a head coach or your assistant coaches, your lawyer, your accountant, your financial advisor, your insurance guy, your banker. In the case of real estate, they're all to a certain extent asleep at the switch, making sure the deal closes and works for them and their firm, but not necessarily for you and your family. Alex, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, man, to be here. Thank you.
John, love being here. Can't wait to do the next one. We'll see everybody soon.
Sounds good. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'm John Napolitano. Until next time, go make some sense out there. Thanks for tuning in to Making Sense. If you got something valuable out of today's episode, share it with someone who'll appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe. One last thing. If you love the show, open your app and give the show a 5-star review. Until next time, thanks for listening to Making Sense.
The views expressed on this podcast represent the opinions of each speaker and are subject to change. These views are not intended as a forecast, a guarantee of future results, investment recommendation, or an offer to buy or sell any securities. The information provided is of a general nature and should not be construed as or used as a substitute for individualized investment, tax, financial, or legal advice or service to any person. Financial planning and investment advisory services are offered through U.S. Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Certain representatives of U.S. Financial Advisors are also registered as representatives of Great Valley Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. To learn more about Napier Financial, please check us out at napierfinancial.com.